Right. Okay.
I realized that, and I was like, I'll just have
All right, thank you, everyone. Welcome to the June land use meeting of Community Board 8. I'm Valerie Mason, I'm the chair of Community Board 8. And we've got a jam-packed agenda tonight, so we're going to get started with our first application, which is the applicant here. Yes, okay, great, thank you. The applicant is Tabulas LLC, and it's an application for a special permit by a private applicant to waive bulk regulations pursuant to VR 74-711 to facilitate a change of use for an existing 4-story landmark building, including community facility use up to the 3rd floor and residential use on the 4th floor, to a 4-story single residential building at 60 East 93rd Street, block 1504, lot 45, within the expanded Carnegie Hill Historic District, Community District 8, Manhattan.
Good evening. My name is Valerie Campbell. I'm a partner at Kramer Levin, and we're representing the applicant. And I'm here with Kevin Luce, who's from Stephen Harris Architects, and he will be describing the work that we're doing on the building. If we can go maybe 2 slides forward, or well, actually go back on that. So this is the building at 60 East 93rd Street. It's located on the south side of 93rd Street between Madison and Park Avenue. It's an individual landmark, and it's in the expanded Carnegie Hill. It's located adjacent to the STEM school, but all of the buildings in the mid-block and along Park Avenue are residential. It's in an RAB zoning district. Go, I guess, to the next one, so it is, that's showing the land use. And we'll go to page 5. You can see the buildings. It was constructed. Can you go to page 5? That's sorry. So the building was constructed in 1930 through 31 for Virginia Graham Fair Vanderbilt, and it was designed by John Russell. It was used as a residence until 1957, when it was sold to the Romanian mission to the United Nations. Then the Lycée Français bought it in 1978, and at that time, floors 1 through 4 were classified as a community facility used as school. And there was a director's apartment on the 5th floor. In 2002, an antique dealer, Carlton Hobbs, purchased the building. He obtained Department of Buildings approval for a museum on the lower floors and for residential use on half of the 4th floor, but he never got a TCO or a certificate of occupancy pursuant to the work, although there was some work done. You can see that the building is relatively unaltered with not many changes to the exterior from its original construction to now. The new owner is an Upper East Side resident now. He has a family, and he wants to convert the entirety of the building back to residential use. The conversion, although it's allowed in the zoning district, requires a special permit because the zoning requirements for residential use have changed since the building's construction. And the interim community facility use means that it cannot be changed back to residential use because it doesn't have a one-year yard, and the windows at the rear of the building and the west side of the building do not have a required 30-foot minimum distance to the lot. And although we're not changing the area of the building and the courts, the change from the existing community facility use back to the residential use makes these elements non-compliant. So I just sort of as a parenthetical, one of the changes that is being proposed under the City of Yes taxi bill we'll be talking about later tonight would expand Article 1, Chapter 5, to this community district and others in Manhattan, and if that happens, this special permit wouldn't be required because you could make this conversion as of right. So Kevin will briefly describe the restoration work that's being done, to satisfy the requirements under 74-711, and then I'll come back and just discuss the zoning very quickly.
So as part of the approved landmarks work, we're kind of bind yourself into a restrictive declaration. Sorry.
Really hold the mic up.
Is that better? Okay, cool. So, as part of the restoration work, it involves repointing and restoring the entire limestone facade in the front, all of the brickwork in the entire rear facade and the side facades. All of the slate is going to be restored for landmarks recommendations, and the windows are actually going to be restored as a part of the approval. And we've actually worked with landmark since then, about 2 rounds of investigative work, and exactly will be replaced in kind, which has been approved by the commission at staff level. So I think the next slide probably has a few more images. Yeah, so that's, it currently had 2 flagpoles which will be removed, but essentially we're restoring all of the ironwork, the limestone, painting the entire building, restoring all of the roofing to bring it back up to what they call like Class A, first class condition. The next slide. The rear had this beautiful ivy, but unfortunately it's not good for the building. So as part of the restorative work, all of the ivy was removed. Part of our certificate of appropriateness application in landmarks, in the light well, there wasn't any more of a certificate of appropriate work. Next slide. This just shows some context of the overall mapping of the building. I think we can go to the next. The before and after the front essentially is just showing restoration and some slight modifications to the 4th floor little windows. Next slide. And then this just shows we're adding a garden stair in the rear, and reworking the basement window openings. All of this has been approved by them.
How many square feet?
18,000. It was built by John Russell, designed the Jefferson Memorial. And the National Gallery.
Jefferson.
Point of information.
All right, we can go to the next slide. So this is our city planning set, and I'm not going to go through every page of it. You have it in your packet. But the special permit is specifically requesting waivers to modify sections 2347, which is the minimum required rear yard, 2387, which is permitted obstructions in courts, and 23861, which is the minimum distance between legally required windows and lot lines, and 23153, the maximum residential lot coverage. And I think the important thing to note is all of these waivers are not the result of any work that we're doing. They're just a condition of the building as it was originally. So the floor area is increasing from 17,567 square feet to 17,993 feet, which is a 3.13 FAR, which is below the 4 FAR permitted. If we go to page 15, that's the zoning calcs, which are in your packet. You can see, this one's fine. You can see this is the existing rear yard. It's only 20 feet deep. It's supposed to be 30. And then there are these sort of court areas here, and there are windows, and they also do not have the permitted length of the 30-foot distance to a lot line. So we think this application satisfies all the requirements for a section 74-711 special permit. And specifically, the use change has no adverse impact on the conforming residential uses that are on the block, and in fact is more consistent with these uses. And the bulk waivers merely legalize conditions that have existed since the building's original construction. As a condition of the 74-711 special permit, The applicant is required to restore the building to a sound first-class condition and execute a restricted declaration that will ensure that it's maintained in a state of perfect. So that's really the basics of the application. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, all right, so Jared,
I would accept the resolution now.
does anybody,
Did you say, sir? What did you say?
does anybody have a question or?
No, I just resolution on the floor first.
Yes.
And then
That's what she.
I would like
Is this the same, is this any different than the resolution we have in our
It
packet?
is different, because this is like.
No, but I'm saying, did anything change, is my question?
Well, this is the second phase of the application
Yeah.
process.
We
The
did an
city-
approval.
Yeah.
So-
You approved the landmarks application and the report.
Yes, but you also, in part D, you talked about, this part of it, and we did an approval. So I just want to know if anything changed.
No, nothing's
Besides-
changed.
Nothing has changed.
Okay, so you're gonna make a motion.
make a motion to approve the
Second.
second.
Any discussion, questions? Go
I
ahead,
just got a
Sasha.
question. If in the case your client wasn't approved for this, they bought the property knowing that this needed to be done, what would they do?
Well, they would have to hope that, Article 1, Chapter 5 was extended, so they could convert it as a right, which they might be able to do, towards the end of the year or perhaps early next year, depending on the timing. Or they would have to sell it to someone for conforming use.
Yeah, I mean, the previous owner called it, they lived on the top floor as of right, so you could still live there. It was just affecting financing and you couldn't get a residential loan, so it's created an odd scenario for that.
Okay, Judy?
All the questions.
Second.
Okay, is anyone going to vote no?
Actually, we have one hand up from the public,
I'm sorry.
from Lo Vanderwalk, and he did sign up. So Lo, you can go ahead and unmute.
Sorry, Lo.
Lo Vanderwalk, you can go ahead and unmute.
Okay, I've unmuted. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Huh? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay,
Yes, Lo, we can hear.
okay. Yeah, my name is Lo Vandervalk, representing Carnegie Hill Neighbors. We're basically in favor of this. This is a good development. And the redesign is modest and the work that's being done is really needed, and so it's hard to oppose this. But we do have a question. Why is the use change necessary if it's a 74-711? That would be a way to get the use that you really want instead of having to conform to some requirements. And the other one is what is the bulk change? It was mentioned again. I thought that part had been approved. Had that part been approved? Can you clarify that? So those are my two questions. Thank you.
The 74-711 application is waiving the bulk regulations about minimum distance for legal windows, rear yards, ports, and those are all, when the building was built, it was built before these regulations were in force. And if the building had never been converted to a community facility use, it could continue legally as a residential use. It's because of the interim community facility use that these bulk non-compliances keep it from being converted back to residential use without the special permit. So we're not, it is really a bulk waiver, a series of bulk waivers that we are requesting that will allow it to be converted back to residential use.
So what will the final ratio be in terms of floors for community facility and floors for residential?
The whole building will be entirely residential.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? We actually called the question, so, is there anyone who is going to vote against the project? So, by acclamation then, all in favor?
Aye.
board members who are on Zoom, you need to have your camera on if you're voting. All right, so Bradley does not have his camera on, so he's not voting, but it is Lori, Will Sanchez, and Chuck Warren who are on. soon right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're welcome. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Oh, I'm sure.
Much more controversial.
Okay. Well, with that needed, we're able to.
Oh, yeah, actually. Change the lines.
Yeah. Check that one, it's very nice. What?
You were the person who was not voting for us last time.
Oh, it was, okay. All right, well, moving right along, we're in the third, third part of City of Yes. This time, City of Yes for housing opportunity. I think there are 9 proposals? 15. Well, 15, okay. So, anyway, we're going to do this the same way we did City of Yes economic development or economic opportunity. We will talk about each of the proposals and do a straw poll. We'll put together a resolution and then, at the full board, we'll vote this way we did the last time. Or, depending upon where this comes out, we could do a straight yes, or we could do a straight no. Or some combination in between. So, George is here to help us. First of all, thank you, George, for your memo, as always. I also want to thank and compliment the zoning committee, zoning and development committee for all the work that they have done on this. And I hope, board members have availed themselves of the prior meetings and gone back and looked at the materials. Which were quite thorough with respect to all the proposals. So thank you, Elizabeth and Anthony and everybody on that committee who went through it. So, and Anthony, I think I'm gonna ask you as we go through, just to read, if you don't mind, remind everybody of where the committee came out on various things and sort of be a touchstone for what the discussion was on those items. All right, so we will start. The first. Hold on a second, sorry. The first few items not theoretically, actually don't apply to our borough, correct? So we start with town center zoning.
But we should vote on them anyway.
Well, of course, we're gonna vote on them, Elizabeth, but I'm just making it clear that they don't apply to our borough. And we've been asked, to be honest with you, we've been asked to vote in borough board tomorrow on this, and I've already told them that we're not doing that. And quite frankly, most of the boards in Manhattan are not in a position to vote on the borough board resolution tomorrow, so who knows? Anyway, okay, so town center zoning. This is about the reintroduction of buildings with ground floor commercial and 2 to 4 stories of housing above. In areas where this class building form is banned under today's restricted zoning. So, wait, Anthony, go ahead.
Okay, I'm just gonna say that, at our meeting, this was last month.
Can Anthony take a mic?
Oh, sure.
Or could you just stand up, since there's only one mic, and go ahead and board.
I'll stand.
Thanks.
Or you can come by the table if you want, since you're gonna talk a lot tonight. Okay.
Okay. The vote in the committee was 9 in favor of this and 6 opposed. And I think that, the feeling in those who approved of this particular feature, the idea of being able to reintroduce mixed-use buildings to the sort of transit-sensitive commercial centers in the non-Manhattan boroughs, because this really applies to R1 through R5, I think. Yes. And so the idea is that areas that are, the area I always think of is, I did some work in that neighborhood, Kings Highway. And there are portions of Kings Highway near the subway, this is in Brooklyn, near subway lines, which are clearly commercial centers, but are we are unable to build mixed-use buildings in those areas right around the subway, and this would seem to be a wonderful opportunity to reintroduce multiple housing into those neighborhoods. At least that's what the majority thought last month.
Okay, Marco?
I think this is one part is for the information. Anthony, he forgot to tell us that he put in the pool, everybody, the public, as well.
No. Kevin separated out.
Is separate?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry for that. So let me make this strong point directly within city ODS. I'm gonna speak metaphorically. Imagine that a person that is gonna take $110,000 in 50 years. And going to the lender and ask for a loan. And the loan, it will be $1.1 million. The lender is gonna say no, because you're not going to pay 90% of the loan. Exactly, this is the problem of these houses. They offer to build 110 dwelling units in 50 years. And the deficit, they don't want to talk about the deficit. The deficit is a secret. I asked the question. They said this is an art to establish the deficit. And then finally, at the end, they said there are several hundred thousands of deficits. In reality, in 2019, HPD declared that they received 1.1 million of applicants for the housing lottery. That means it's 10% only of the full deficit. We don't resolve anything with the city of yes. Let's go analyze that. Somebody can argue, say, oh, this is very old number. Well, at the beginning of this month, in 7 days, there was 600,000 applicants for Section 8. So that means right now we're talking about approximately 80% of the total deficit. So the deficit is not addressed in this housing of years. Housing of years, it should be just only for 80%, when in reality it should be at least 60-70%. And that is why I strongly recommend all the applications should be denied. Thank you.
Okay, Elizabeth?
So I want to address something that Marco just said.
Yeah, I'm just gonna ask everybody if you stand up and then face the room so everyone can hear as best they can.
I appreciate Marco trying to do the math here, because it is important in what is a very big set of changes. As I've understood the explanations, these changes will produce 110,000 more units
No, that's not right.
than would otherwise get built.
No.
That it's not saying that this is, that the only real new residential real estate that's gonna get developed over the next 15 years is because of these changes. But that these changes will generate 110,000 plus or minus additional units to what is going to get built. And while I agree that that in and of itself is not an enormous portion of the deficit, there's no question that the deficit is several 100,000 units at least. It's not the only residential development that's going to happen. And B, it also doesn't preclude other neighborhood rezonings or other actions that will also generate more residential. It doesn't preclude any other decisions about taking programs towards more affordable housing. It's impossible to imagine what is one fell swoop solution to our housing problems. This is a piece of all of it. But this is a piece, a step forward and a piece to will greater growth.
Sorry about that, everybody on Zoom, we're back, the internet here is not straight.
Okay. And we want to make a general statement about Coyle going forward. I think maybe we're gonna try and do this piece by piece. So let's try to keep the comments to the first piece that Anthony mentioned. Michelle.
Yeah, so the first piece is the town. Zone. And permit the problem the whole thing. But this. Which going to come anywhere near satisfying the housing crisis because we are not addressing the causes of this crisis. So if you build 100,000 this year, you'll need 200 next year, you'll need 400 the following year. There's going to be no end to it. It will never catch up. And to my mind, to destroy the whole, revamp the zoning in the entire city of New York for what I see as a pipe dream. I realize it's an effort, but I think it's a poor effort. I think there are better ways to go. And this is just, this particular number one, it's not the most egregious of all of the proposals. It's probably the least egregious, but it does infringe on some of the more historic areas in the outer borough.
Okay, thank you. Alita?
Valerie, forgive me. I'm gonna vote no on every single provision in the city of Yes Housing, and I will stop talking after this because we don't know enough. The city has tried to distill 800 pages into a 45-minute presentation. I'm sure there are plenty of details that we don't know and don't understand and don't know the ramifications. There is definitely an anti-zoning movement in the Atlantic, which I like. They spoke last week about how zoning is responsible for loneliness because people don't have dining rooms because of zoning. So if you extend for every that there is a door, then they want to change all of the zoning, but I know nothing about what's really going on, and I can't trust what the city says because it uses words like today's restrictive zoning, so it is editorializing as it's doing this. So because I don't feel comfortable voting about every district in Queens and the Bronx where I walk, and Staten Island and Brooklyn, and my parents both work for the city. I never would have been able to grow up in New York. I need a different person, and I like the person better than right now. So I'm just gonna say, I'm not, I don't know what the city has on, and I want people in some way because we already have all of it. So I don't feel comfortable voting on changes in their communities when I don't understand it. So that's all.
Okay, thank you, Alita.
Thank you.
Duly noted.
If I can just comment, because this is, reading from George's, memo here. The community, what is it called, town center zoning will continue to impose height limits on those buildings. They are ever so slightly higher, more or less 10 feet. Yeah, 10 feet, about 10 feet higher than they are now.
20 feet, 2 to 4 stories.
All right, let's.
No, it's 10 feet high. I'm looking at it.
Okay, I'm looking at this.
Yeah, but no, but the 2 to 4 stories means you have a 1 or 2 story commercial base and 2 stories above it.
Yeah.
That's a 4-story building.
Okay,
And that is also, and that 2-story building is underbuilt.
okay.
Okay. Anybody else with any commentary? Elizabeth?
I don't know if people can hear me, but I can't get up. I think that the objective is something that we all
You need to put it
support,
closer if you're gonna
which
get
is
talking.
getting more out.
If you're gonna talk into the microphone, you need to put it much closer to your mouth.
Oh, is this close enough?
It doesn't sound.
Waste more time fighting over the mics than we're actually going to accomplish.
Exactly right.
Okay.
It is.
Is it on?
Yes.
Okay. I think we all support the objective, more housing and certainly more affordable housing. I think it's one of the most important things for us at the moment. And I think that therefore it's important to do it right. And I think, I'm certainly not gonna refer to all the objections we found on the committee because we'd be here till 3 a.m, but, it is a proposal in its entirety is far too flawed even to develop, I believe. And another proposal must be started to do this important essential work, which is getting the housing. This just basically the proposal does not consider the damaging consequences of the various elements. It's questionable about whether it will provide affordable housing. And of all stupid things of people who are proposing getting more affordable housing, it doesn't save any affordable housing. So I think as will Alita, I will vote no on anything just to get started. Take this out, and there are great studies, the Women's City Club had, a very fine presentation. And my neighbor to my right, had a very fine presentation, for the Upper East and Upper West Side. There's a way to go. But this is it. And I think what is
Hold on a second, Wilma, do you want to have something? Hold on a second. Give you the benefit of the mic.
It's not gonna help.
Basically, the first several proposals have, to be honest with you, nothing to do with Manhattan. But we're looking at this as a whole in terms of of more housing will make other housing more affordable.
Right.
It's sort of, this is my opinion, the Reaganomics of housing theory.
It's a creation of more buildings they think will make.
Okay,
housing
Chuck,
more-
Chuck, please weigh in, and then we're gonna do a straw poll on this. Oh, I'm sorry, okay, we'll go to Chuck first and then to Craig.
Okay, can you hear me? I'm sorry, can't be in the room because the sound keeps going in and out. It's terrible. But
Sorry.
I'm someone who has a lot of experience with affordable housing. I chair the board of the Settlement Housing Fund, which sole goal is to create more low and moderate income housing in New York City. And it's a big struggle because you have to use all kinds of government funding, Section 8, tax credits, etc. And I think that this proposal, along with the others, is at least a step forward. And you can say all you want about, well, we don't know if it'll happen or if this will happen, but we know one thing: the present system is not working. It's failing miserably. We're hundreds of thousands of units behind in affordable housing. And I think this at least gives us a chance to make some progress. And so I'm supportive of this and the other provisions that will at least give us a chance to get more affordable housing and change the status quo, which has existed for many, many years.
Thank you, Chuck. I don't want to cut you off, so I can't see you. Are you done?
Yeah.
You finished? Okay. Craig?
Great, thank you. Chuck made some points that I was going to make, but I just want to bring us back to the broader perspective here, which is we are a city. Yes, we are here in Manhattan, we are here in Community District 8, but we are a city and we need to be thinking about this housing crisis that we have on a citywide basis. And while I appreciate there are some people who do not want to increase densities anywhere or who are worried about overdevelopment, height limits and such, the bottom line is we need to do something about housing. And we need to look at each of these proposals on a case-by-case basis, even if they do not apply to our district, and think about what that means for the broader city. And what that also is going to mean for us, whether it be a trickle-down theory or whether it be the reality that because we are looking at this on a citywide basis, if we are not going to be willing to be open to reasonable developments, in this case, town center zoning, or whether it be transit-oriented developments, in the next section, then what are we going to support? Because I'm guessing that no one is going to say, yes, put it out, don't do it in the suburbs, but do it here. It's going to be, do it in the suburbs, the outer boroughs. Do it in the outer boroughs, and do it here, or don't do it in the outer boroughs, don't do it here. Maybe there are some people that are in between, but to take an all or nothing perspective and saying we can't do anything, consider anything, even in those places where it's reasonable and appropriate to develop would be really a mistake.
Okay. Does anybody have anything they want to say? Before we go, particularly on this piece.
Well, I suppose in thinking what Chuck is right said, we need to find more housing.
Okay, that's fine.
This plan information, are we voting, I mean, each thing individually right now?
We're gonna vote proposal by proposal.
Okay, great, because I just wanted to talk about something else.
Okay, well then. Okay. So,
Wait, sorry, our internet just keeps cutting out, and so it's gonna be, there's no way to fix that tonight.
Well, we have enough to.
Yeah, well, there's people on
Great.
Zoom that are
It's
saying
not
that
gonna make
too.
a difference.
Okay.
Right, thank you.
Yes, what is? So
Can I just text you when you wonder?
Yeah. If you are.
Raise your hand. Oh, let's get there. Okay.
yeah, it has. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wait. Wilma, you had your hand up before. 11. One, yeah, sorry, I have lost track at this point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
You should have gotten 6.
No, because there are three members online at least.
Okay, let's,
No,
how are we doing with the simple math now? Okay,
We are close enough to know it's a yes.
okay, it's a yes, okay. Okay, now we're gonna move on. Second proposal is transit-oriented development. And this is, again, we're not talking about Manhattan. This proposal would allow modest 3 to 5 story apartment buildings where they fit best essentially large lots within a half a mile of a subway or rail station that are on wide streets or corners. So this is the proposal. We know there are certain people who are voting no on everything, appreciate that, but that's been noted. Ty, go ahead.
Sorry, I hate to be that person, but there were lots of hands and I don't, can we actually count who voted?
But this is not an official vote. This is a straw poll. We're gonna do the resolution in the full board like we did the last time.
Okay.
But this will go down that we support this plank of
So
COI.
just the total numbers of yes and no
Yes,
for
yes.
each one?
So we're doing this for the straw poll,
Not by person?
huh?
Got it.
Yeah, we're not doing roll call or anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Michelle.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point about this. Even though it's within a half mile of a rail, subway or rail station, just bear in mind that it is possible, if this passes, that it could be put in what is currently single family home zoned areas.
Yes.
And that is something that those in the outer boroughs, and myself included, even though I'm not directly affected, I think it's absolutely outrageous to infringe on a single zone area where people put their life savings into a home and all of a sudden they can end up with a 4-story building. And in some other cases with a taller apartment building or an additional structure on their land. So
that's the next.
I know, I said that, that's a different
Okay, all right,
thing, but I'm
let's keep
just
it.
saying that this is part of it and I'm opposed.
I think one of the things here is, yes, it would, 1 and 2 family districts, would be affected. And, but there is a minimum lot size requirement of 5,000 square feet. And, so there was something else about that.
George, do you want to say anything about it?
I think it's good conversation. That's all.
Okay, all right.
So anyway, that was just to clarify.
Okay, yeah, no, I appreciate that. Marco.
If it's 1 or 2 family, they want to change to 3 family. By building codes, you cannot put 3 family house in 1 frame house, period.
But isn't this about new development? This is about new development, isn't it, George? I mean,
But everything is built up in the city.
well,
Not in Brooklyn and Queens.
not in Brooklyn and Queens. I mean, you can take a lot there and just raise a house and put in a new building if you want.
So this proposal really is about new development. The next proposal is about additions.
Yeah, that we can go to town on if you want to. Okay, anybody has anything more to say about transit-oriented development?
Can we call the question?
Okay, those in favor? Hands up.
All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19,
2 on Zoom.
and 2 on Zoom.
Laura, 3 on Zoom.
Okay,
So it's 22?
I swear, I got 22.
Okay,
That's gonna be.
do not.
That's gonna be the same.
If you're voting no, can you just please put your hand up?
All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I see 14 no's.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right. Now we're gonna talk about, again, go ahead.
Was there a difference in the number between the first vote and the second vote?
Yes.
So,
Count Zoom.
is there any reason why we're not just?
No one raised their hand.
Some people may not be raising their hands on
We
each and
have to
every
vote
one.
one by one.
Oh, they changed your mind.
Is there a reason?
What do you mean one
Yeah,
by one? There's 15 different
Oh,
proposals.
because so far it doesn't seem that way.
There will.
Well,
Okay, got it.
believe me, there's gonna be a marked change very soon. Okay, so, all right, now accessory dwelling units.
Now, there are a number of,
Essentially, again, this is for the outer boroughs. And it permits accessory dwelling units such as backyard cottages, conversion of garage, basement apartments, throughout the other boroughs. And that's essentially the proposal. Marco.
Look, probably I asked the question with the city planning, and city planning answered this question. Is a basement a floor area? Yes, basements always count as a floor area unless a specific use. So the point is, we have two colleagues right here, Anthony and David. We know very well that always basement is habitable, is that you can transform in a dwelling unit. And there needs say change legal basement. It's like what you're saying is we're gonna legalize the ground floor as a first floor.
No, but this needs a second.
One thing.
Consider this, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Okay, one thing is that, many other cities have changed their zoning to allow one and two family, homes. Is the New York City, as in everything else, is different. And our typical lots are smaller.
Dwelling units is the basement apartments, as we saw in different hurricanes that have happened over the past few years, especially in 2021, a lot of people have passed away due to living in illegal basement apartments. So I just want us all to remember that and think about the addition of basement apartments.
Okay.
Thank you.
Matt.
I think on that basement apartments point though, I think that the reason why they should be legalized so that they can be regulated. If they're able to be regulated, they become safer. And if the basement apartments that are most likely to have had people die or get injured during hurricanes or other natural disasters, those are not legal basement apartments. And in this case, they can become legalized, they can become regulated. And that way there will be standards up to which landlords will have to keep their basement apartments so that folks may remain safe during natural disasters.
I'm sorry, Matt, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, the thing that caught my eye about this one. Point is that, this thing says you could put something up 25 feet high. It could be 5 feet to the lot line. And I'm thinking about that 1 and 2 story house in Brooklyn, and you're looking at the backyard and all of a sudden, you know, it's going up and there it is. I mean, it's on you and that's really tight. I mean, and I get it. And let's face it, I mean, I hold nothing against anybody who goes to the boundaries of what's allowed. But, and you're gonna go to the boundaries of what's allowed because, you know, it's like playing backgammon with my son, oh, green hit, well, I would hit you too. So, you know, of course you're going to the boundary, you're going to the limit. So that's what kind of worries me about this.
Okay, Michelle, last comment.
Yeah,
And keep it to this, please.
what I was gonna say about this is I think it's outrageous. Again, people who have invested in private property, their private home. We have lots in New York City that are like 60 by 80. They're very small. Can you imagine having an accessory and then that puts another structure right next to your neighbor who may not want that, and that you're turning this residential neighborhood potentially into a transient neighborhood? Because one of the reasons given for this is not just housing, but it's to give the owner the ability for additional, you know, money, additional business. Well, if there's no guarantee it's gonna be for, mother and father, children, which is what the proposal talks about. It can certainly be commercial, and probably will be. It'll be unregulated. It'll turn this into a transient, residential neighborhood, into a transient neighborhood, and a big infringement on all of the other property owners in the area. I think it's an outrage.
Okay, I just want to end by just clarification, and I'm plagiarizing. There are a handful of these sites in Manhattan, but primarily this is an issue that affects the other boroughs. And, you know, to Michael's point, there are actually a lot of these illegal apartments that are in use now. And the Department of Buildings has the power to stop it. So in a sense, they are being regulated, in my opinion. They're illegal and they should be stopped. And so there's an enforcement mechanism and a regulation already in that they are illegal. So just like we're shutting down cannabis shops that are illegal, these apartments can be shut down because it does result in death, as we saw just a couple of years ago in Queens and in other boroughs. So, all right, anybody have anything else to say, or we're gonna do the straw poll? Judy? Okay, all right, everybody in favor of accessory dwellings?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, I see.
Chuck is 1. Lori is 2. Will, Sanchez, Bradley? No, thank you.
So
Okay.
that's 14 yeses.
14, okay, those against the ADUs?
I think there are more than 14.
Okay.
Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, yeah, we have more, 17, 18, 20, I thought I saw 22.
Well, you should
I know,
count
I
it.
was.
Your own when you're ahead,
Yeah.
so.
I do one.
Okay, well, I'll do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Did I get both?
And you got the one on.
20, 23, 20, so 23 in the room plus 1.
Those numbers don't matter.
14.
It's really hard to count.
I'm just saying, like, we're gonna do numbers,
Your
let's just
body to
actually
the
do
other
this right.
side and count over there.
We also did somebody left.
Okay, all right. District fixes, moving right along.
No, I have a comment on this.
Okay,
Or
can you
actually,
announce what it is first before you comment? You know, thank you. This is supposed to give homeowners additional flexibility to adapt their homes to meet their family's needs. And the idea is to address, is a shorthand for a series of changes to lot size, lot width, FAR, height, and setback for all low-density districts. Again, not our district. And the idea is that some lots can be smaller and some buildings can be bigger. And these changes are not as large as those seen in the town center zoning and transit-oriented development proposals. But it does increase the allowable densities in nearly all the low-density districts. Go ahead,
now,
Anthony, make your comment.
I think in general, in abstract, what this is not so much is a change to the regulations within the zones rather than rezoning the districts. And so in that sense, it's pretty benign, but the one thing that George pointed out that is scary is that and this is where I'm actually confused, is the yard requirements. In other words, there are places in the city now where the rear yard has been allowed to be reduced to 20 feet, the R2X zone in Brooklyn, for instance. But my understanding from what George wrote was in fact that this reduction in the yard requirement would be extended citywide, including us.
Yes, it would be for all residential buildings under 75 feet, meaning you would still have a 30-foot rear yard requirement if you needed, if your building was over 75 feet. but under 75 feet, it would be down to 20 feet. Which is, yes, it's a very big change.
So if you're in the Treadwell Farms district and you have rear yard, it can be smaller.
Yes,
Like what we approved tonight. But that was special.
That's right. No, that was 20 feet and that
Yeah,
was.
but they came to us,
But that was the 1960s.
Okay, in the committee, just as in the committee, there were 9 no supports and 5 supports. So if anybody else have a comment on this one? Go ahead, you know.
Is there a reason why all of these changes were like lumped together instead of being separately or proposed separately?
We'll have to ask the mayor that.
I think
No,
city plan,
All of these separate district things, including the yard thing, including the density.
it's under housing.
I think really it was because they're sort of small incremental things. In a way, what it's doing is taking some of the special districts and the rezoning in the outer boroughs, like the R2X, which was done in the 80s. And allowing other R2, R1 through R5 districts to adopt the same sort of slightly higher heights, slightly narrower yards. And I think the idea was really to sort of bring everything up to that. The reason that it was done in R2X was the R2X zone is a very densely populated Syrian community with very large families. And they wanted to make the houses as big as they could, and they got the city under Koch to agree to the special district and the special zoning in that district. So it's, I think the idea is to try and make it possible for houses to be a little bit bigger, which doesn't mean it's a good idea, it's just.
George, do you want to add anything to that? Go ahead.
I don't know why they lumped them all together, but they're all relatively small changes that if you're trying to expand your home, it makes it easier to do that. I think that's why you sometimes need coverage, you sometimes need floor area, you sometimes need height. And so they were looking at it from a project perspective as opposed to all the components.
Alita?
I just have a question.
I thought you were going to talk about it.
I have a question. Those are.
I'm just kidding, I'm just kidding.
Thank you. The question is, this isn't about adding new housing, it sounds like. It's about allowing existing housing to become bigger. So how does it affect the shortage of housing?
It doesn't.
Okay.
Well, wait a minute.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
There are sections of it that do address the housing. So for example, the reduction in lot size requirements enables lots to be split so that an additional housing unit could be built. So there are aspects of this that would generate the addition of completely new housing. And there are other aspects of it that allow for people to build a larger house. You know, there are a lot of people who would like to build a larger house and there are lots of reasons why that could be a good thing too.
Barbara?
Also, it means that a larger family could live in a house. I just have to say, I keep picturing my childhood home. I grew up in Brooklyn. Near probably the place, I want to talk to Anthony about where he did work on East 19th, which is 3 blocks away from the train station. And we had apartment houses right around us. It isn't the suburbs. We're still in the city, even though I grew up in a very lovely turn of the century house. It was a beautiful house. It's now an apartment building. And these happen and we can't picture it as if we're in this Scarsdale or something like that. It's different and it means that families can grow and stay in their house, larger families, which it's the ability people stay there.
But this,
What?
no, I was gonna say, but this doesn't mean, in other words, this doesn't mean that a homeowner cannot enlarge their home. They just have to go through a process with permission to do it. The only thing that this is doing is making it as of right, so that there's no oversight, there's no, there's no input from neighbors, that's the
That
difference.
is what is happening here. I just want to say that from the overall perspective, It's basically trying to make things that you would have to come and get community approval for and go through a ULURP and go through a lot of community review, at the city council, at city planning, and a whole range of stopped
Bureaucracy.
milestones. And basically saying, now you can do this as of right. So whether you're expanding your house, and then, you know, when you put them all together, you're expanding your house, and then you can do an ADU, and then you can do this and that. That's how it all happens. So all of these changes are met, and that's, I think, you know, just to sort of quote city planning again, it's a little housing everywhere. And by allowing all of these things as of right, you're allowing multiple tools to try to alleviate a housing crisis. Whether you believe in that or not, you know, that's essentially the methodology that we're looking at here. Okay. Anybody wanna, are we ready to vote on this one?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. And all those in favor of district fixes,
All right.
raise your hand.
And I'm going to try to say everyone's name so you know you're counted. Anthony, Craig, Barbara, Elizabeth, Robin, Juno, Paul, Sasha, Maximilian, Tana, Abraham, Judy, Felice,
And Addison.
John, Addison.
You have one,
And Lori.
Lori, and then Chuck
And Brad.
and Brad.
3.
Will Sanchez raises his mug, okay.
So that's 23 yeses.
Okay. And then the noes?
All right, noes. Valerie, Elizabeth, Gary, Marco, Michelle, John, Alita, Gail, Rita, Michael. Wait, Todd, is your hand up or, okay, Todd, Bill, Jane, David, Andrea, Ed, Sarah.
18.
How many is that?
I got 6.
I would have put this. I
How
thought it
many
was
was
7.
that?
Aren't you just pretty good? I don't know.
I
You're
don't
going for the secretary.
Sorry.
Hey, got everyone's name.
Okay, all right.
That was what you
Yeah.
got.
Impressive that you knew everybody's name, yes.
Okay,
So
all
what
right.
did you get, Addison?
All right.
What's the amount?
I got 16.
But it's still passed.
It's less than 20.
Okay.
I'm a math major and I can't count.
16
Okay. All right, now we get to universal utility preference. And the idea of this is to replace I'm gonna just quote, a Bluebird era inclusionary housing program and the older optional R10 inclusionary housing bonus. The UAP is supposed to be typically used for, you get 20% additional floor area in the R6 through R12 districts. The extra floor area must be used for affordable housing with units that average to 60% of the AMI. And the UAP would apply everywhere throughout the city, except for MIH areas. And the MIH areas would still require affordable housing at the AMIs required when they were mapped. So COIHO makes small adjustments to permitted FAR under MIH so that MIH and UAP FARs match, and that's all described in George's memo. Sorry, I didn't need to stop myself, but go ahead, Elizabeth.
Okay, I have one suggested modification to this component, which is the maximum height, which increase for each of the zoning areas. They increase at varied rates. So some of them are being increased by 16%, some of them are being increased by 30%. My proposal would be that, first of all, I think UAP is a big idea. It is a very good thing for the city. It's probably the most powerful component of all of these different proposals. But you're getting a 20% bump in FAR, the maximum bump in height should be 20%. It should not be able to be above 20% for a 20% bump in FAR. But I would propose that modification, and when we did this, I guess, for economic development or what have you, we voted with some modification.
Okay, David, you want to
That
talk?
may not be so easy when you think about the zoning, you think about the setback requirements.
Can't hear you.
It may not be easy to achieve because the zoning requires setback setbacks as the building gets taller because of light and air consideration. So they're trying to put a cap on it of 20%, not 20%. Just isn't going to work.
Okay, anybody else? Marco, go ahead.
Well, I think the idea, they put an example. They said, in a vacant lot of 100 by 100, they can build 11 affordable houses and 58 market rates. But in reality, if we have in the Upper East Side, that is exactly impact in our community. We don't have vacant lots. We don't. Everything is built up. So what we have in our community is the walk-ups. And I took at random 4 buildings. And the 4 buildings, they added 72 affordable units. 72. And they are proposing 11 affordable units and 58 market rate. Now, let's go talk about the market rate. In my experience, that I did a study of some buildings in the unprotected area, I found that the developers, they never build 100% of the allowable number of units. They just only build between 25 to 54%. So if it's 58 units, the developer is going to just only build 31 units or maybe 40 units, rather to build the 58 units. So basically we have with this kind of program, we reduce housing, we don't increase housing. One more point in this part is these tenements or walk-ups are completely full of rent control and rent stabilization. That's what the owner, they love to see out. So they will start tenant harassment, spatial segregation by income, pushing the people out from this community and bringing more wealthy people in our community. I think it's wrong.
Anybody else want to speak to this? Go ahead, you know.
I just have a question. Was the only thing that changed since the time when those tenements were built was the elimination of rent control, or was there something else that contributed to the 72 affordable housing turning into a rent?
Oh, the issue was, I took a random 4 properties that each of them have 25 width. So combined is 100, and the lot is 100. 100 by 100 is 10,000. And that's what the example they give it to us. They said, in this lot, it will work vacant. They can build 58 market rate units and 11 affordable units, when in reality, they are right there, it's 72 affordable units. Doesn't have no sense at all.
George, do you have anything?
But what changed?
It changes that they are trying to push out those people that they are under rent control and rent stabilization
Weren't
out.
they also trying to push out rent control like back then when those buildings were built?
No,
Like,
no, because they're
Sarah?
viable. Landlords were
Sarah,
able
you
to
wanted
make
to say
money on it.
something?
They can't now.
I'd rather hear George first.
Well, I don't want to make George talk if he doesn't want to. Go ahead.
Well, okay, just to summarize briefly, this is basically a 20% bonus for 20% of FAR, right? So you get a 20% affordability in every building if they choose to use it. It's optional. Optional, like the current R10 program is optional. But it's designed to be, all of the floor area you get in the bonus, it's designed to be for 60% of AMI, which is relatively low on average. And it's supposed to be in the building as opposed to off-site in most cases. It is the only affordability program in this. It is the only thing that's there. It is designed to nest with 485X, which is the new state subsidy. So if you are using 485X, you will likely use UAP because they both require affordable housing, and you can use the affordable housing from UAP for 485X.
Okay, I would like to make a comment about this
I have a
because
question.
my comment is the following. I don't see this creating any affordable housing in our district at all. We've seen over the years, developers just take down all of the affordable housing we have and build luxury buildings. We've seen applications recently, the former governor of the state of New York and his real estate company that were going to tear down the building at the corner of 79th Street and Fifth Avenue to build a building tall, same size with half the number of apartments in it. The thing that and this is all voluntary, so it doesn't mean that affordable housing is going to be built. There is also a theory out there that if a developer avails themselves of this option, it will actually increase the price of the market rate housing that is in the same building to make up for the money that the developer is not making from the affordable units. So they will wind up getting 20% more floor area, and those apartments will be extremely expensive. And again, the amount of affordable housing we will be getting is just crumbs at the table. And I quite frankly think we need something more bold than a voluntary affordable housing program like this. And that's my comment. Sorry. Go ahead, Alita.
I've got a question. Is there anything in here about the city or the state building affordable housing on city land?
No.
So it has given the full responsibility for affordable housing to the profit-making
private
sector instead of taking responsibility, because Scott Stringer did a press conference not that many years ago, but about how the city has 1,000 pieces of property on which it can build affordable housing. And there is currently a dispute in the village about the city using one of its lots to build temporary affordable housing. So there should be, maybe, so my question was that, and then I'm just wondering how this puts changes into so many neighborhoods without the city taking any responsibility.
Okay,
That's
Sarah,
it.
go ahead.
Thank you.
So I was gonna respond to.
Can you just stand up because it's really hard to hear you from back there?
I just wanted to respond to Julie's question. So, anything that is spent, like demolition of existing buildings in our district is something that is more likely to lead to the loss of affordable housing.
Lead to what?
So
Lead to the loss of affordable housing.
So back, on the board of Friends of the Upper East Side, back in 2015, we did a landscape review of the Upper East Side into the south end of Harlem. And we challenged ourselves as people who cared about zoning, who cared about preservation and human scale neighborhoods with what the future of New York City, this district would look like. And on the Upper East Side, what we found overwhelmingly was that the best way to preserve affordable housing was to preserve existing buildings. Because that's where all of the affordable housing is. And that's what Marco meant when he said that whatever gets redeveloped, even if it follows these guidelines and uses these opportunities, that the number of affordable units generated will never replace the affordable units that existed in the tenement buildings that are the ones that are most likely to be demolished.
Okay, yes.
And just two things on that same point.
Okay, our check's on.
And then I have a question for George.
Okay, and this is really in a way, for you, Gina. Most of the tenement housing predates the rent control and rent stabilization. Those were products of a severe housing shortage immediately after World War II. And so that's why we have those regulations in place, and that's why the real estate industry would like to get rid of them, as seeing them as a relic of those immediate post-war years. And so that's really where it comes from. And I think that Sarah touched on a very important point, which is a little bit off, which is that even if you take those 58 units, or how many ever, of workforce housing and convert it to 58 units of more workforce housing. And that's the way we should look at it, because affordable housing is a kind of technical term of art, political term of art related to a specific income. And workforce housing is a little bit of a broader way of looking at it, because that's really most of what our housing is on the Upper East Side, or it should be. And anyway, you take those people and you tell them, okay, you've got to move now. And we're gonna put the same number of people here, but and you can live here too, but you have to live somewhere else for 3 years. And most people just move. And so what happens is that the tenants, the occupants, the people who live in these buildings are displaced. And nothing in the current plan is designed to help people stay where they're living now.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Chuck, go ahead on Zoom. Yes, I understand you have a question, but let Chuck speak first, okay?
Let me just say a few things. The city does not have a lot of property that they can devote to affordable housing. And most of the property that they have now, they did have a lot more property they took in tax foreclosures, but a lot of that has been given away and used to build housing. And in fact, as I said, the organization that I had got a bunch of buildings that way from the city. But where they have it are in NYCHA projects that have space on it. That's another issue, and has been one that we all know about. So I don't think it's not correct to say that the city could build a lot of housing on its on what it owns, because they don't own that much property that would create that much housing. Number one. Number two, I think as George said, correct me if I'm wrong, that if this 20% bonus, you have to build the units on site. You just can't purchase certificates like you could do under this, the program before, like the 80-20. And so I think that it will result in more affordable housing and be better than the situation that we have now.
Thank you, Chuck. You have a question, Michelle?
Yeah, quick question is for George.
Yeah.
George, you mentioned this 445X, which a developer can take advantage of for affordable housing. Can he take advantage of that in a building that did not get the 20% bonus?
Yes.
So that means that affordable housing, that new law, whatever that is will be available to all developers, whether or not we approve the 20% inclusionary housing.
Yes.
Correct? Okay.
Okay. Good, Barbara.
I just don't understand what's different than today. I think we could all agree that when you knock down these walk-up apartments that we're losing it, but they are knocking them down. Just come to my neighborhood and
Right.
none of that. So what is the difference? And right now we did have the 421, and I guess we have approximately the same thing back again. So what would be the difference? Why is it?
George, you want to answer that? Go ahead.
Specifically, the question of what?
What proposal will this be? People are arguing, arguing that this is brand new. And I don't understand because I don't see what is new about it.
This is brand,
today.
okay, so currently we have very few zoning affordability programs. We have the optional R10 program, we have an inclusionary housing areas, and we don't have any inclusionary housing areas on the Upper East Side. So this is something, if developers want to take advantage of it, any place, they can do it. They can use zoning to get a 20% bonus to create more affordable housing in their building. The question is, I think that's a really big unknown, is will they do that? And I think the evidence suggests that, and certainly in condos, they probably won't, because you can't use 485X for condos. That's one of the things that, a limitation that has been placed in Manhattan only, that you can't use the subsidies for that. But for rentals, they count twice, so they may very well be used for rentals.
Okay.
George, and just to clarify, 60% AMI is an average.
Yes.
So you can do lunch above that, and then just have like one or two way down and to bring, it's an average.
However, HPD does their averaging, it's something like that, yeah.
Okay, we're gonna vote now. So this, if you are supportive of the universal affordability preference, raise your hand.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How many are online? And Judy, are you that a hand? 9.
There's 2 online, 3 online. Will Sanchez, are you 4 online?
4 online, so we're at 13 plus me, so so 15.
Okay, so against,
Is that including 4?
Yes. All right, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 22.
okay. So now we go to lifting parking mandates. Again, just for those not in the know, there has not been a parking mandate in Manhattan for 40 years. And so what this would be doing would be to, Elizabeth, I have to ask you, Elizabeth, I can hear you talking. Thank you. What we're talking about is basically making the rest of New York City like Manhattan and having no parking mandate that goes along with building a building. It doesn't affect Manhattan except for community districts. Is it 11 and 9, I think?
9, 10, 11.
9, 10, and 11, where they actually do have parking mandates in some of their buildings. So is there any discussion, or? I'll start the discussion by saying I think it was a mistake 40 years ago when they got rid of the parking mandate in Manhattan. I think we would have a lot more alternatives for uses of our street if our cars could be parked in buildings, and we've lost that ability because as long as we need to have parking on the street, we're limited in allowing uses of the street for whatever, whether it's expanding pedestrian use, bicycle use, bus lanes, etc. And having grown up in the other boroughs, I think, those parking is very important. You don't have the close retail stores that you have in Manhattan or ways to do things. You have to travel by distance. I think that our transportation is gonna take, right now for disability access, the MTA, forget about whether congestion pricing goes through or not. We're talking about like 2033 before they get full access for what they determine is full access, which is like one elevator at every station. So I think that doing away with the parking mandate is very short-sighted. So that's my opinion. Go ahead, Sasha.
So I just wanna say, even though I don't really agree with like getting rid of parking, for anyone who's ever underwritten developments, to have parking included is a huge burden on development costs, like parking, especially underground parking, which is what you'd see here. And really even in outer boroughs now, because there isn't that much space, it is so expensive that you end up, cutting affordable housing, cutting the size of the project to try to make up for parking. That being said, I don't think as someone who doesn't have a car, who lives in Manhattan, that I should dictate, yes, get rid of parking. But that is why it's included in this, because it's so cost prohibitive for affordable housing development, for development in general, where parking is zoned.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, but they are able to charge so much so that they can make up for I realize exorbitant costs of building it.
That's
The
not
only
in
thing,
every borough, that just depends on.
Right, let's not have a cross discussion. Go ahead.
right, no, I understand your point, Sasha, I do. The other thing is all this pulling the parking mandate from Manhattan, all it did was a windfall for the garages that already exist. It's because they have no competition that you're seeing $700 a month for a car. So you do have cars. I know there are people who think we should eliminate them completely. They don't want to see them on the streets. They don't want to see them anywhere. However, it is a choice that people make. They want a car. They like to have a car. Just like the bike riders want parking for their bikes. The car riders want parking for their cars.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Craig.
And just like it should be a choice if people have cars, it should be a choice for developers as to whether they want to put in parking or not. So just to be clear, this doesn't prohibit developers from putting in parking. It just doesn't require there be a minimum amount of parking. So developers can still put parking in where they see fit. They have to weigh the cost and benefits of doing that. We have to weigh the cost and benefits of what that means in terms of affordability and what it means in terms of the number of units that may be able to be available, because parking does require space and obviously has a cost. And you can talk about the societal costs as well of parking in the city and all the issues in regards to congestion. This is a best practice right now in transportation planning. Cities across the country are removing parking minimums. They are not establishing them at this point. And I think we should be following this on a citywide basis, in addition to the fact that we already have this here. So it really doesn't affect this community much at all.
Okay, thanks. Lori?
Yes, I agree with everything that Craig said. And I also just wanted to point out the simple fact that to build parking takes up a whole lot of space that could be devoted to affordable housing. So, yeah, so that's all I wanted to say.
David?
I think we should have mandatory parking.
Okay.
Quite frankly, for the people who can afford it, they're gonna be happy to have it.
Right.
For the people who can't afford it, they'll get a few more parking spaces on the street. And if you don't have mandatory parking, it's just gonna make the congestion that much worse.
Anybody else, or should we vote on this one?
Let's vote.
Oh, I'm sorry,
One comment. I
quick, please.
David said it best, but developers are grown-ups. If it costs them a little more money to build the building, they will either charge more for the condos or they will make slightly less profit. If you know upfront what your expenses will be, you can do your pro forma so that you still make your 25%.
Yeah. The only other comment I'll add is going to Borough Board. There have been two projects that have come before us from the two community boards in Manhattan, 9 and 11. And they were both asked to waive the parking requirement, and they voted down the projects because they wanted the parking for their residents. And I just want to say in relation to the wealthy argument, I think that people who are not wealthy should be able to have a car and be able to park it, and that's part of having affordable housing. You don't want to be in an affordable apartment and be stuck there and not be able to move around like your wealthy neighborhoods. And I think having a car, Mr. Ford back in the day created an automobile so a lot of people could have it. And I think that that's a good option. Okay, that's it. We're gonna vote. Go ahead.
All right, if you're in favor of this, please raise your hand now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How many online?
One, Chuck, are you? Two, Will, three, Chuck, Bradley? No. So three online.
So 11 are in favor. How many are not opposed to this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22.
And one.
So 23.
Okay, thank you.
23.
Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 9 to go. I'm just telling everybody as the timing. We have 9 to go. The next one is conversion of non-residential buildings to housing. So it's to make it easier for underused non-residential buildings, mostly commercial, to be converted into housing.
What is easy, Rick? What does that mean?
It means that,
but what does it mean?
More buildings are eligible in broader
No,
geographies.
but it means something with the regulations, that's what I.
Well, right, so you don't have to have the same legal light and air for habitable rooms.
Right.
You get relief from that, so like, as we were on the earlier application, if this had passed, they would not need the special permit, because they could just convert it as of right, essentially allowing substandard light air for the
Right.
habitable rooms.
But they could convert it with the current oversight that we currently have.
That's right.
Yeah, there are ways of doing it, currently, it's harder, it usually involves a lot more construction activity. This allows it to convert much easier.
Right, but you're losing a standard of light and air by doing it.
Indeed.
Okay,
Yes, that's
go
why
ahead,
these
Ed.
words need to be defined.
Okay, Ed, go ahead.
I had a quick question. You're talking about loss. Is it possible to quantify that, George or anybody or David? But is it possible, like, a reduction, is it like
Add a
a
little
50? Oh, sorry, is it a 50% reduction as a percentage? Are you able to kind of give an approximation of what that is? Or is it, if you can, if not, that's okay.
There's variation in this because it goes with the multiple dwelling laws, units and it has to do with distance between buildings and then fire protection. It's complicated. I can try to find that out before the next meeting, but
It's, George is right, and it also varies zone to zone, so you have some districts where you have basically a 5-foot or a 10-foot rear yard in certain commercial districts. And then there are other places, especially if you're converting big buildings, where once they start setting back, you actually don't have that problem anymore. The only problem you have is, the apartments are too deep, right?
Okay, Marco.
I'm gonna try to be quick.
Okay.
The first point is, it's true that, you're not required to have a light and air. But the multiple dwelling law, it required to have it, one. And the second point is, regardless of whatever the city planning says, who interpret the zoning resolution and enforce is the Department of Buildings, period. So whatever we say is wrong sometimes, because in DOB, they say in the way that they want to be, and that is the way it will be.
Okay, David?
Question for George, does this run counter to the multiple dwelling law?
no, so there's, it allows you to use, what is it, section 277 of the multiple dwelling law, which has different standards for light and air. Essentially, the minimum standards that were written to facilitate the conversion of these non-residential buildings.
Okay. All right, can we vote on this one?
Yeah.
Okay, those in support, raise your hand.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
2 online.
So we're at 17.
Okay, I think we need to come on the other side.
All right.
17.
No's, can I get the no's? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
Hi.
It was the tie-breaking vote, so it's no, it's 18.
Wow, okay, all right.
Well, that's
what happens when you hit last hand up. Okay, small and shared housing. This one is about reintroducing housing with shared kitchens or other common facilities. Eliminating strict limits on studios and 1-bedroom apartments, and this is citywide. Again, if this change is adopted, minimum unit sizes would be determined by the housing maintenance code and the building code. So, anybody have a
Isn't
comment?
it currently 650?
No.
What is it currently?
I think it's 325, right?
It is currently, the dwelling unit factor is 680 square feet.
680.
Just only in high density.
Yes, in high density zones.
Yeah,
And
what I
does
meant to
strict
say
limits
was,
mean?
DCP has reported in the past that the smallest practical average unit size would be about 325, which is essentially a little less than half of what is permitted now,
Yes.
so.
Valerie, you said it can go to 325.
Well,
I didn't hear you.
that's what, their DCP is saying they've reported in the past that the smallest practical average of a unit size would be about 325.
Half the size.
Yeah, so that would, think about the accessory dwelling in a garage or what Michael was talking about earlier, taking a small room in a house, that would qualify.
Another question, what does strict limits mean? maybe George can say what that is. If you look at this, it says, eliminate strict limits on studios and one bedroom apartments.
Right, so the way it works now is that 680 foot is a hard limit, right? You do the math on it and you can't have, you essentially can't have too many small units. And you would have to increase the size of some of your units over that. It's a hard limit. And this would essentially eliminate it entirely. And so you could have many smaller units.
George, is
300
680
square.
an average unit
Yes.
size? Okay, so 680 is an average unit size, it's not a minimum.
No, absolutely, it's, right, so it could be much smaller, you just have to have a diversity of units if you
But
have
the much
studios.
smaller is the 325.
Yes.
Point of information.
All right, go ahead.
What it is they use 680 as a factor, but
Yes.
to determine the maximum dwelling units. And the units can be one larger and one smaller, they can combine, that's what it means.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody have anything to say about this? Oh, who's in the back? Oh, Judy, go ahead. Okay, all right. Those in favor of small units?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I got it.
You got Chuck, you got Lori, are you? Lori's a yes, and Will Sanchez is a yes, so there's three.
So 3, so 13.
13,
Okay.
As a college student, I'd kill for 320 square feet. You know.
Okay, and how many is against?
Oh, we gotta be against, my bad.
Against?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I got it. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18 plus how many online?
No.
All right, 18.
Those numbers do not.
We're getting weird. I don't think
Are
people
people
are
not
voting. I think people are not voting.
Come on, stop voting, and you don't have to vote, but otherwise we're going off. Okay, all right,
So
now,
now saying laws.
13 yeses, 18 noes.
yeah, so we're gonna vote no on, I mean, not no on that one, but that's how we present. Okay, now we get to campus infill. Now, this would make it easier to add new housing on large sites that have existing buildings on them and already have ample space to add more. For example, a church with an oversized parking lot. I just want to say one thing before I go out to, this was brought up at Borough Board. Just something to think about, especially for the not-for-profits. If the not-for-profit, based on the existing cannabis law and liquor authority law, if you were to increase the size of your church or do an infill on your property, you would no longer be entitled to the exemption that would say a cannabis shop has to be 250 feet away. Because in order for that law to apply, it has to be for the single use of a school or a church. And so I just put that out there. Sandra, you're first. Go ahead.
So, no, there's a housing crisis that has exacerbated throughout the years.
Can you just speak up or,
Okay.
if you want to come up and use?
No,
that?
no,
Okay.
no, there's a housing crisis that has exacerbated throughout the years. There needs to be a task force formed within city council to identify the warehousing of apartments. Because that's one of the reasons a lot of apartments warehouse. Now, as for for campus infill, the city is eyeballing NYCHA campuses, which is disheartening. The walkways, parks, and parking lots were designed to be there, not to be taken away. Infill is hazardous to the community members and campus that it would be placed on, negatively impacting the stakeholders psychologically, destroying their air quality, and they will likely lose their sunlight with all this construction and whatever's gonna block wherever they live in. An infill proposal came to Holmes Towers, which I had once lived at, and in 2015, the former mayor was overriding the EULA process. March 8, 2023, City Council Speaker Adrian Adams said, NYCHA is land rich. NYCHA residents are a community of stakeholders that deserves respect instead of the disrespect of squeezing a building on their campus. So when she made that statement, I was horrified. because it's just disgusting to say that it's land rich when it was designed in a way for people and their families, and even the people outside of the NYCHA campuses use the parks, they use the walkways, so that's all I wanna say, so I'm definitely voting.
Okay, thank you. Alita, to the no.
Yeah, there's a little institutional memory here. So when that proposal came up for the Holmes Rupert campus, it was a 50-story building. It violated the sky exposure plan. It was on a side street. It would have been maybe 30 feet from adjacent buildings that were already there. We met with the residents and NYCHA and people from the city, part of the community board meeting, to talk about this with the residents, because it was so unfair to them. The city pulled the infill right after that meeting because it was so horrifying. The developer said most of it was going to be market rate, that it was an asset for his family, which outraged people working for the city, because that's not how it should be viewed. It's really a problem, and to just blanketly give permission for this just feels wrong. And for what Andrea said about the NYCHA campuses, I looked into all of this and met with people about it, and every campus was designed as an individual plot of land with these buildings, and the design was integral to the way that people were living there, not just in Manhattan, not just Rupert and Holmes, but across the city. There is something, that's why I'm talking about this. This is so inherently horrible for the people that live there, and for putting market rate housing in there and interfering with their light and their air and the whole neighborhood feel, the sense of community that people who live in these developments expressed at that meeting. We were there until midnight that night, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Okay, anybody?
Thank you.
Call the question? Okay, those in support of campus info, raise your hand.
One.
You got two.
Two?
I'll be a third.
So there's one on.
No, there's.
Wait, so, can you say again, because now, is this?
All right,
in the-
if you support, raise your hand. 3.
Okay, anybody else?
One on Zoom, Bradley had his hand up.
Okay, so that's 4. You want to count the notes?
Yeah. Here we go.
Count.
Oh, I'm going to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29.
Okay.
Did you get it?
Lori.
Oh, yeah, Lori and Chuck.
All right, so they represent 31.
So 31.
29 plus 2. Lori and Chuck?
Yeah.
So 30.
Okay, all right. Moving right along, the next one is for the creation of new zoning districts with FARs above 12 FAR. They haven't identified any of these districts, they just want the right to do it. They
realizing.
So,
Leave it in their hands.
okay, do we need to talk about it anymore? Do you want to vote yes or no?
We're gonna vote.
We want to vote, okay. Those in favor of giving city planning the ability to map these new districts?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Lori? You have,
To see Wilma.
there's one on Zoom.
All right, 8.
Okay, the noes?
Oh, we did 2.
Right, 9. Those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26.
You got the one on Zoom.
Okay, so
How
27.
many yeses were there?
There were 8 and 27. Okay, the next one is update to mandatory inclusionary housing. And this would allow, can you explain the MIH option 3 to be standalone option? Can you just give us a little overview so we know what we're kind of doing here?
Sure, the way it works now is that you have to have 2 options, and when you have MIH areas, the developer gets to choose one of them. They want to make it so that option 3, which is the deep affordability option, can be a standalone option. So if the council member wants deep affordability, that's what's got to be produced. So the idea is to make that a standalone option. It would affect future MIH areas, not necessarily current ones.
you can mention.
Mandatory inclusionary housing, there is only one area in your district. But if there is going to be upzonings, there will be more. There are also tiny changes in FAR to essentially align the new UAP with MIH in terms of FAR, you know, and it doesn't affect any districts that are in your community district. So it's really a very technical fix sort of proposal.
Go ahead,
Does
Jane.
include.
Yes, what is the affordability? What is that?
That would be AMIs at 40%.
You
So
mean of the average salary or the average?
average median, the median income of 40%.
Of what the average is?
No,
Area.
Can you give an example, a concrete example?
Well, it varies by household size, but it's low. That's-
Well, what I wanna know is that what is, if the average is 120,000 a year, what would be the deep affordability?
So it would average 40% of 120,000.
48,000.
Okay, question, go ahead.
Yeah, does this include historic districts?
It would only affect mandatory inclusionary housing areas, which in theory could go on historic districts, and I guess they do in Soho, NoHo, they've mapped it, yeah.
Okay, ready to vote?
Yeah.
Those in favor?
1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry. Okay, everyone raise their hand if you're voting in favor. All right, we're starting over.
Those in favor,
Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. How many online?
You got 3, Will, are you a yes too?
Did you get
You got all 4.
So 13, 17.
17, okay. All the no's?
My bad. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 17.
So we're split on that one, okay. All right. Okay, next, our favorite, the sliver law, I'll just give you.
Mother of the sliver.
Yeah, we have the mother of the sliver law here.
Have somebody come and talk about it.
Yeah, I mean. What do you want to say? Here's your chance, go ahead. You want to talk,
Speak up.
do you want to talk about the sliver law, why it's
Yeah,
important?
I think that, it was passed with no objections whatsoever. There were only a few that had been built. And, they met with such horror. I think probably call it the, against the sore thumb law, that it only affects the narrow building that is sticking out like a sore thumb. And the reason, if you abut a building that is taller, you're fine because you disappear. It is only when you stick out like a sore thumb that this applies. And I think if there's such horror, people don't really know because it's like they haven't been built for 40 years. But we had an application last night with a building that I know will be should be conforming with the sliver law, but it was just a landmark application. And everybody just looked at it in horror and said, it's too tall.
Okay.
So I think that, to lose it for really, nothing, would be a real tragedy. So I hope we save it.
Elizabeth Rose?
This effectively eliminates potential development of waterfronts where all of the original lots were less than 45 feet and none of them were redeveloped prior to the implementation of the sliver law. It basically says that the only way you commit to redevelopment on one of those blocks is to combine lots, which may not be something that happens easily. And so it really is a major constraint on redevelopment of, there are lots where you still have a bunch of lots that are narrower than 25 feet.
Actually, that's not quite true.
Yeah.
You're talking about you're talking about avenues and blocks, and in fact, those 4 or 5 story buildings. The sliver law mandates that you can't build taller than the width of the street.
Yeah, that's all. Which if you're, in a lot of these cases, you're still looking at a 60-foot height.
No, that's mid block in the R8 streets, but not the wide streets. Wide streets, it's 100 feet.
George, can you settle this for our two sides, please?
And well, 100 feet is still a lot lower than an as of right of what you can do with the FAR. It's still a major constraint to development.
I don't think so.
Okay, well, we can, go ahead, George, just.
I think both are right. I mean, it.
Yeah, it's our
100 feet. I mean, what has happened is, for instance, a 100-foot building on Second Avenue was built, the Sliver building.
Right.
It did not use the optional affordable housing bonus because it couldn't fit it into the envelope. So there are choices that have to be made. It does impair some developments for sure. But you know, developments can happen under it.
We vote.
Relax.
Well, I mean, everybody's just stating the same opinion that they
No,
have
like,
over and over.
well, everybody's entitled to have their opinion.
Like, everyone's
entitled to
opinions
time.
here.
Everyone's entitled to their opinion. Go ahead, David.
And you're editorializing a lot in presenting each of the options.
Discussion.
Yeah, well, it's a
Go
bias.
ahead, David.
I don't know, I'm just the only one speaking up.
No, you're not speaking in a turn, actually. Go ahead.
I would like to support Elizabeth because this is an issue of the end justifying the means. But I can tell you that you're gonna be very happy with the end if you vote for this.
Okay, does anybody else have a comment? Elizabeth, what do you want to?
Well, I just wanted to clarify, in, they all considered removing it in RAB when RAB was 60 feet height limit because the sliver would allow you that. It is only, in areas where you can build higher and shouldn't because you've got a low row of brownstones, say, and you want to put this skinny thing up to the sky, so. I think that it limits development, but very little in the development it allows. Offends people quite rightly. People were screaming when they were getting,
Okay, so we're gonna vote.
The question.
Okay, those in support of maintaining the sliver law?
maintaining.
No, the yes to the proposal to change it.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I said it backwards.
Right.
So if you support changing the sliver law,
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
And Lori on Zoom, anybody else on Zoom?
So 10.
then
Yeah, just Lori.
All right, let's get the no's. Hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21.
You
21.
12. I'm 200, so 23.
23. Okay, thank you. Okay, 3 more to go. Quality housing amenity changes. So this is about extending amenity benefits in the quality housing program to all multifamily buildings and update to improve incentives for family-sized apartments, trash storage, disposal, indoor recreational space, and shared facilities like laundry, mail rooms, and office space. Basically, you get a 5% upsize, right?
It could be as high as 10.
Okay, so 5 to 10% upside if you include these amenities. Does anybody have?
Say that again?
You get an upsize in your FAR, right? You would
You
say,
get to exempt these amenities from your FAR calculation, so you get them for essentially for free.
If you upgrade,
If you put these.
If
things
you
in.
put them in.
if you put them in.
Correct. Go ahead, quick, Mario.
Right now, exists this program. The only thing is, what is calling my attention is right now,
Talk to all of us.
I'm sorry.
We can't hear
I'm
you.
sorry. This quality of housing exists right now. I don't think it's a very good problem. And most of the developers in our community, that's what they love to use it. And I agree with them. The only situation is right here is, for instance, in the corridor. You have, if you provide in the end of the corridor a window, which is very nice, less claustrophobic. They say the program, you can have 50% of the discount of the floor area. So they give a bonus to the developer. But in this case, they want to give you everything. And I think it's a good incentive for the developer. We have to give something to them.
Okay, so on that note, everybody in favor?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
And I got 2 on Zoom.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 23.
23.
Plus, how many on Zoom?
3.
26.
26. All right, and then those, sorry.
No's, please, hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay, thank you. All right, landmark transferable development rights. So this is supposed to make it easier for landmark to sell unused development rights by expanding the transfer radius and simplifying the procedure. So, it's pretty.
Anthony should show his diagram.
We can do that.
No, can't do it.
I mean,
Okay, Marco, quickly.
Well, the issue right here is they want to give some $millions to the building on free. Because they want to increase the floor area from 4 to 4.8 now. And I did the calculations, assuming that the cost of the square feet is $350. And that is the price that they paid, Excel to, the church on Santa Monica. So the only thing they have to do is to sell the air rights or the dancing of the air rights to the avenues. Expecting that they're going to build affordable housing. No, they're not gonna build affordable housing. Somebody already mentioned the building of the former, governor, which basically what he did is from 66 dwelling units reduced to 46 dwelling units. So in this area, specifically in historical district, they're never gonna build affordable housing. The only thing they're gonna get is $1 million or more than $1 million for each owner of the buildings that are in the green blocks. It's the dancing of the money.
But essentially, this proposal would increase the area from which you can transfer unused development rights. Probably half the people here were there last night. And so it's currently, the law allows you to transfer your air rights from a landmark to across the street, the lot behind you, next door. And if it's on a corner or actually on the avenue across the street, you can go across the street, next door and behind. This would expand it to include the entire block, if you can imagine the sort of island that the block constitutes, and across both streets, both avenues. So what that would do, and then also completely across the street as well. So if you have a building in a landmark in the mid block, you would be able to transfer your development rights to some unused air right to someone on either avenue or across the street or behind. So the effect of this will be to increase the size of buildings on the avenues. And I did one example which was the Colonial Dames Building, an individual landmark on 71st Street. And if they transferred their rights to Second Avenue, several 10 buildings down. If they transferred their unused air rights to the avenue, and that avenue be used the universal affordability option or whatever we call it, and also the transit improvement option, they would be able to increase that building to an FAR 15 from 12. It's a lot more building. And that's just a tiny example, because you're talking about a building in Colonial Dames that has all of 11,000 unused square feet.
All right, any other commentary? Or are we ready to vote on this one? Vote, okay.
All right, the yeses, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. All right, everyone put their yeses up. 1. All right, we're good? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Is there anyone on Zoom who's a yes?
Yes, what?
Oh, Lord, thank you.
All right,
And Will said this too.
14. 14, yeah, because we did.
13.
No.
14.
Okay, now, no.
All right, the no's. Oh, did you have a question, Sarah?
I do have a question, but I'll ask it after.
The no's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19.
I get 1 for Chuck and 2 for Bradley.
Okay, so 26.
Okay. No.
21.
21 on the nose. Okay, go ahead, sorry, go ahead.
If any of these zoning regulations change or become adopted, do they supersede the protection of landmarks in historic districts?
No.
No. George is shaking his head, no, I'm not saying that on my own.
So or is the only thing that the transfer of development.
I'm sorry, Sarah, say that again.
So in this whole city of yes housing package, the only provision that would have an impact on landmarks or historic district is the PDR.
The only major provision. There are some other minor provisions, which I, put together for the landmark conservancy. I can share them with you, later, but they're not major, they're really minor.
Thank you.
Okay, so the last official one for the evening is the railroad right of way. Is this essentially the High Line?
No.
Case that
No,
would allow you to do over a rail?
it is, it replaces a special permit with these authorizations to essentially allow for building over or using the development rights from rail yards or former rail yards. So if you think of, there's big plans for Sunnyside yards, big plans for other yards. I mean, I have some minor issues with this because they don't define the former rail yards with a date, like, so, you know, how former could it be? But ultimately, this is to make it easier for development on top of or adjacent to a rail yard. I don't think you have any in your district. However, DCP has not shown us a map.
Okay. All right, so you have a question?
Yeah, I do, yeah, because again, the simplify and streamline, it just seems to me it's taking away oversight again. And that's the theme of not only this piece of the city of yes, but of all pieces of the city of yes, which remove oversight. And somehow if you were building over a railroad, I would like to see some oversight.
Okay.
So I'm not thrilled with that standard would be lowered.
Okay, all right, call the question. Those in favor of simplifying and streamlining, raise your hand.
All right, I'm gonna give everyone a second. Last call for yeses. All right, I'm counting now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and how many online?
Are there any online?
What?
1, Lori?
So that was. All right,
Noes?
the no's.
Wait, you count, Greg?
Yes. Noes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18.
I got Bradley, Chuck or Will, are you voting? No.
So 19.
Okay, so that one doesn't.
Because some people are not voting for Shannon.
Some people aren't voting. What is the number? 11 in support, 19 against, Jane. Thank you. Okay, go ahead with the question.
Anthony, in our zoning and development committee conversations about this, we spent a lot of time one evening talking about, there was somewhere in City of Yes proposal that the height restrictions in special districts would be eliminated. And it was a specific issue that would have affected even that, Madison Avenue. And George doesn't remember which one of these it was in. I've been looking all evening for where was that?
That may have been something that didn't make it into the final proposal.
Okay.
Because, no, I mean, there was, we were working off of originally working off the sort of September of last year.
That was something that in our committee meetings, we were deeply concerned about. It hadn't come up tonight, and I'm just concerned.
Okay, well,
It's a question about whether or not the 20% bonus would apply within special districts.
And there was mention of.
Yeah, so it will, but the way they apply it is they made the change to Madison Avenue, Park Avenue, Fifth Avenue, so that instead of a 10 FAR cap, it's a 12 FAR cap. And so therefore, they just hard coded it into the special district to allow for the 20% rebate.
Okay.
So the answer is yes.
Jane,
It was there.
Jane?
My question is, the height limit in the Madison Avenue Preservation District is 21 feet or 210 feet.
210.
So would this increase that? Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Yeah.
it has to be increased
Yeah.
because they received 20% plus 20 feet
So
high.
that is an impact. Madison Avenue.
Yeah.
David?
It overrides, does that override the landmark?
No, no at all.
A special district is not a landmark district.
Right.
Special district is zoning and a historic district is a landmark.
Okay, so, just a couple of things. So we'll put the resolution together and it'll reflect yes, no on all, and we vote on it as one package. The two that we were tied on, I think we'll just have to. Yeah, okay, one tie. We might have to wait and see what the vote is that night, so we'll adjust. Just two things I wanted to mention. If you looked at George's memo, which I know 99% of you did, you'll see that there are other topics in there that aren't addressed on the worksheet. So, and we've not been asked to comment on those. That's, those are the residential building standards, the new tower on base building envelope, and the bulk modification for non-compliant buildings. So I don't know what else to say about that. What, Alita?
Just about the art show, we can't.
No, I was about to say that. Okay, all right.
Why would we comment
You've got a
anyway?
1,300 page proposal, 1,380 or whatever it is, page proposal, so we could hardly discuss.
Everything, well, I mean, you
1,380
can,
pages.
here's what I'll say. I mean, if you want to think about it and we can bring it up at the next meeting, and if we want to add something as a commentary to it, I point everybody to those provisions in the memo to take a look at between now and our next meeting, which is on the the 26th. So I just want to make an announcement. The art fair this weekend has been canceled because we're very concerned about the heat wave and what effect that will have on the exhibitors, as well as our great staff and volunteers who are going to be out there all day, and also the exhibitors. So it's been postponed until September 21st. And so if you've invited anybody to come, please tell them it's not going to happen. Motion to adjourn? Motion. Paul making his motion.
Suggest that you double check the cultures art show, art show. We don't want to be in competition.
Okay. David is saying that, I guess the motion to adjourn is, by acclamation. Okay. David is saying that he thinks it's culture.
I think that.
Thank you very much.